Welcome to the Coast to Coast podcast, brought to you by Play Picks and the Lines, coming to you from the West Coast. Josh Lander, joined by my guy Nate Weitzer on the East Coast. We are looking at a 6-game slate as we close down this NBA season. Most teams just have 2 or 3 games left. In this one right here, we're taking a look at the New York clashing teams. Brooklyn headed to Madison Square Garden, taking on those pesky Knicks right now, who are out of the playoffs, but definitely pesky as they continue to sort of win decently over their last 7 games or so. We'll look at some of the best bets in this one for you guys. Make sure you check out Nate's great article up on playpicks.com with some best bets and player props in there for you as well. And also like and subscribe to that page, as we got a couple other videos up for you today, including that player props video. We love to bring you each and every weekday. And head over to thelines.com as well. Make sure you check out who's in and out of those NBA lineups tonight, as well as head over to that odds checker. Make sure you're getting the best juice available from odds makers out there with our props tool, as well as the odds checker tool we've got on there for you guys. And as always, if you do still need a FanDuel or a DraftKings account, head to ftpicks.com or dkpicks.com and find those listings in your area, such as what we've got for tonight. Nate, let's jump into it.
Yeah, the Knicks opened as 9-point dogs here at Madison Square Garden. It's been bet down to 6 points because the Nets have just not covered at all, especially when they're favorites. So they're on a back-to-back here. Understandable that we're seeing some action on the Knicks. Total holding pretty steady around 230. And we do like the under there. We're going to look at 5 other games here tonight. Lots of back-to-backs here, as most of the league went last night. So a lot of unknowns in terms of who's going to sit here. Stay on top of those injury reports, of course. Mavs are minus 8.5 at the Pistons. The Wizards plus 10.5 at Atlanta. Washington came off a key win over Minnesota for a lot of the Western Conference teams there last night. The other game we break down, Celtics are minus 7.5 at Chicago. Bulls on a back-to-back after losing yet another game against a top team. Total is 222 there. Thunder plus 17 at Utah. Shout out the Thunder for playing, their backups last night and still somehow coming back to beat the Blazers in that tankathon. And then the Suns have moved from -3 to +1 against the Clippers because it seems like we're expecting some vets to rest after the Suns pretty much hit their franchise high in wins, have little left to play for here down the stretch. So we will focus on a game with at least one team. I mean, both teams have a lot to play for here because while the Knicks can't move, they certainly will care about handing the Nets a loss, trying to ensure that the Nets are the 10th seed here heading into the play-in tournament, have the hardest road to actually becoming a playoff team. I mean, they've been up for these matchups every time since the Nets became that supposed powerhouse, since KD kind of dumped on the Knicks on his way to Brooklyn. And they've covered in 4 of the 5 games, losing all 5, but they've covered. And that's been the MO with Brooklyn all year. They will win in these spots they're expected to win, but they will not cover. They're 4-25 against the spread as home favorites. Granted, this is at MSG. It's still kind of a home game. Even in any venue, they're 16-35 against the spread as favorites, and they failed to cover in 7 of their last 8 when favored, failed to cover in their last 5 overall with a 0.6 net rating. Failed to cover last night against the Rockets, where they were 17-point favorites. So that one was relatively close, but absurd. I mean, you just can't expect this team. They're really just scraping by. I mean, they're leaning so much on Kyrie and KD, who are all world players. Now that Kyrie's a full-time player, though, he has not had the same elite efficiency. KD's got to be worn down at this point in the season as well. Everything he does on both ends for this team. Now, Seth Curry, questionable. Goran Dragic out tonight with COVID. James Johnson also out, but the guards is the key here in terms of being able to score against the Knicks. The Knicks, we know, pack the paint. They give up the 3rd fewest paint points per game. They give up the 5th highest percentage of points beyond the arc. So you have to be able to hit threes to score a lot against this Knicks team. Their defense has improved lately. To say the least. I mean, they just completely shut down some bad teams in their last couple games against Orlando and Washington. 3-2-2 to the under, so dancing right on those totals in their last 7. And they won 5 of those games. So, I mean, I think we like the under here. Brooklyn's gone under in 6 of the last 8. Their pace is, despite the fact that their pace is very fast in that span, it's just kind of the expectation of Kyrie and KD and how easily they can score seems to juke the line. But there's just not enough help around them that when you get a team that's really willing to get into their jersey, like the Knicks, I'm sure will tonight, and make other guys beat you, the other Nets are just so cold right now, and a lot of them just aren't big offensive threats that I think the Knicks will be able to muck this up, stay close, and probably keep it under. I like a tease if you feel a little concerned about them covering to go plus 10 and 233 under. I think that's a pretty confident bet, but I have no problem if you want to go with the plus 6 or the plus or under 229 in general.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting. I would play this a couple of different ways. I mean, I would play the under and figure out how to hit that. To be honest, the stats for both of these teams over the course of their last 7 or 8 games are actually similar in a lot of ways. Different in that the Knicks are playing pretty much the slowest pace, second slowest pace, and the Nets are playing in the top 5 fastest pace in those last 7 or 8 games. Similarly, though, their net ratings are not great. I mean, the Knicks in their last 7, to be fair to them, have actually the 10th best net rating, playing at that second slowest pace, and scoring the 3rd highest percentage of their points from 3-point. So they're a team that's just chucking up a bunch of shots. Not a lot of them are going in necessarily, or a high percentage of them, but they're just going to be putting up volume shots and playing, decent defense, nowhere near what it was last year, but good enough to remain 4-3 against the spread in their last 7. And I think, the only conflicting information for the Knicks' ability to cover tonight is how poorly they're playing at home since the All-Star break specifically, where they're 2-7 against the spread in that time frame, 3-6 straight up, but the 4th worst offensive rating, still in the top 15 in defensive rating, keeping their net, also 4th worst though. So I think, I look at that and I say, I'm taking away the fact that they are playing defense and they're not playing offense at home. And that's all I care about. Just an awful offensive rating at home, 4th worst, like I said, since the All-Star break, but still playing defense well enough to be able to hang. The other thing that I like the under for is the fact that Julius Randle's not playing in this game. And the Knicks have covered 4 of the 5 games they've played against Brooklyn since last year. Like you said, this is their Super Bowl. This is their sort of attempt at getting back at KD and even Kyrie for not choosing the Knicks and choosing the Nets. At the same time, they had Julius Randle in those matchups, and he's not here now. And I'm not saying he's necessarily the only reason that they covered, but I mean, dating back to last season, he's averaging 27 points, 9.5, and 6 assists. Those 6 assists are outstanding as well when you consider the playmaking that they need that they don't have anymore. RJ Barrett with his 29% usage rate or so in the last 4 games since they shelved Randle for the rest of the season. It's still not like he's filling up the other stats. Only about 4 assists in that time frame, about 5.5 boards, but they don't have the playmaking right now. Emmanuel Quickly, the other guy with the 2nd highest usage rate on the team in that since Randle went down as well, also not an assist guy, averaging actually less assists than RJ in that time frame. So they don't really have the playmaking. They don't have the scoring coming from down low anymore, or even really on the extended wing, or even with Derrick Rose getting into the paint. None of those guys available for them. So they're going to continue to have to hoist threes, right, with guys like Quickly, Burks, Fournier, and RJ there, who's also increases 3-point percentage. But it's just going to be what they do. And Brooklyn in all season has been good against the 3-point shot, right? They're 8th in terms of limiting their opponent to a lower 3-point percentage, which is something that they've been consistent with all season, that they've sort of sold out to sell to guard the 3, especially because they have a lack of depth down low, even with Drummond in the fold now. So I think, look, the Knicks, they have a rest advantage. That's a huge factor here as well when you're talking about a Tibbs team where he just runs them into the ground. There's a reason that a Tibbs team this season for the Knicks, 12-8 against the spread when they have that rest advantage, 9-5 against the spread when they are on 2 to 3 days rest rest at least, which they're on 3 right now. So I think this is a great spot for them to cover. I do like the under as well. I'm kind of following you in terms of taking a teaser just because I would like a little bit more breathing room for myself if this game does get to around 10 points that the Nets are able to cover. Even though they're not covering 17.5-point spreads like last night, they are winning a lot of those games against the Pistons and against the Rockets by 8 to 10 points. So I expect that to be around that level of play tonight. But I also really like the under as well, as both these teams are failing to score at the rate they want. The Knicks playing really slow and good defense. So I would consider either Nets money line and an under parlay, or I would just consider maybe a teaser of those Knicks up a little bit and get that under up as well.
Yeah, I mean, there's some interesting stats in terms of how the Knicks are going to be able to score here because they do depend a lot on free throws. I mean, a lot of that is Julius Randle being in the lineup. He gets a high free throw rate. And interestingly, the Nets are giving up the highest percentage of points off free throws on the road. They don't give up threes. They don't give up many paint points, but they do send you to the line. In fact, they sent the Rockets to the line 36 times last night. So I think that seems to me more in support of the Knicks being able to keep pace in this game. If you say like, well, how are they going to score without their main playmaker in Randall? They're just going to bang down low. Like we said, they're going to muck it up. They're going to make Brooklyn feel them. They're both on defense and on offense. They're going to bruise them up because they really don't like this team and they don't want them to escape from this game unscathed. The last thing the Knicks would want is to lose by double digits. And let Brooklyn, feel great about themselves as they try to lock up a better seed here. They're going to make them hurt. They're a black and blue team, and that's why I think they'll muck it up and they'll keep it relatively close. As the Nets just don't have much interior defense, even with Drummond and Claxton playing there. Their numbers are just bad in terms of being able to keep guys out of the paint and deny offensive rebounds. And the last thing is that they still are 21st in the league in fourth quarter scoring, and the Knicks are allowing the fourth fewest fourth quarter points. So there's a live betting opportunity here for the under potentially. This game could be slow paced and low scoring from the jump. So I don't know if you'll get that, but it does make you feel better to say, are we going over? And then all of a sudden in the fourth quarter, things might just slow down and stop, and the points might stop flowing.
100%. Yeah, I fully feel that. I think a couple of things that also support that under. Look, if you want to hit the under from the jump, I'm not going to stop you at 229.5. I'm feeling good about it. If you want to wait to see if the Knicks hit the barrage of threes that we know they're going to be taking in this game, then do so as well. Because if they do hit those threes, you could see 120 points scored before the half ends, right? And in which case, now you're talking about a total that's probably looking closer to 240 going into that second half. And now you've got a great opportunity to hit a sort of under 120 points in the second half there. If you are, like I said, scared of a barrage of threes at some point, I don't think there's going to be made threes all over the court all night for the Knicks. But it is possible that if they're just hailing threes, that they are going to essentially be able to hit some of them. And then you are a little bit more worried about the under, in which case the live betting op is something that you can feel pretty safe about, knowing that the Knicks play super great D in the fourth and the Nets do not play super great offense. And the last thing there too is just if you do think the Knicks are going to keep it closer like we do here, this is not going to be a crazy blowout, then you're also talking about the fact that the Knicks in these games that they either win or cover, they're still only scoring about 110 points a game. Right. And in which case, if they're going to cover, you're talking about the Nets at about maybe 117, 116 or so. And you're still feeling good about that under 229, 230 total there. And I think that's what we're saying here is if it's a Knicks game that they can hang in, this is going to be a slow paced, weird looking, choppy game, Nets on no rest, et cetera, et cetera. So all shipping up to be exactly what Tibbs and company would like tonight. And that is all the time we have for you in this one. Make sure you are liked and subscribed to that page. Check out those other couple videos we have up for you today on this little 6-game slate as we come to this close of the NBA regular season. And until we see you next, happy betting.